Friday, that's 2 minutes past the hour. Welcome everybody to this PreSales Collective webinar on the Chief Solutions Officer, how PreSales influence is shaping business from the inside out. My name is Paul Harris. I'm a Principal Solution Architect at Loftware and also a PreSales Collective Ambassador. It's a pleasure of mine to be hosting this webinar for everybody today. I hope you're going to kind of really enjoy it and get a lot out of it. We do have a poll which should be appearing right now, and it'd be really great if you could just fill that out. You know, what best describes your current role? Are you an IC, an SE, a solution architect? Are you a pre-sales manager or director? Or maybe you're one of our fantastic sales colleagues, or perhaps you're just somebody who's looking to learn a bit more about pre-sales and what that kind of role looks like and how that's changing how businesses operate. It's going to be a couple of minutes just for everyone to fill that out. All right, so good to see we've got a nice mixture there of folks, mixture of people interested in pre-sales, currently in pre-sales, some management, and also some from, let's say, from the fantastic sales side. So it's really great to have such a nice diverse mix on the call today. Okay, so we're going to move ahead. Going to have a little look at the agenda for this morning, which is really kind of just it's a session which is designed for everyone to interact with. So please, there is a chat, there is a Q&A. As we go through, please feel free. Please do, if you have questions for the panelists, please put those in the Q&A. That's where we'll be coming to in that sort of last part of the session. But any kind of other conversation you want to have, this is a chance to kind of connect with other professionals, get to know more people, and really kind of find out more about this. I also need to say before we dive into this, you know, none of this would be possible. None of PreSales Collective would happen if it wasn't for you, if it wasn't for the members. So thank you for making this the community that we are. We are really, you know, really made by our members. We are what our members make us, and I think it's fantastic to have so many people here today. Yeah, and as I said, please make sure that you use those Q&A functions, that you really want to kind of be active in that chat to really ensure that you get the most out of today's webinar. But before we kind of dive into it, I'm going to introduce our panel, and I'm going to go around and have them introduce themselves. And I'm actually going to stop sharing at this point. I'm just going to kind of go to a few questions. So, Elena, if we'll come to you first. So, what's your current role? Where are you based? What's your preview? And how long have you been in pre-sales?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Elena Hutchison, based in Alexandria, Virginia, which is just outside of Washington, D.C. I work for a company called Medallia, and actually my entire pre-sales career is here. So I started just over a decade ago as one of our first pre-sales folks, grew that organization, and now I lead what we call strategy here, which includes product marketing, some sales engineering, but not all of it, as well as demo engineering, and basically all the things that help us communicate value to our customer base. So nice to be here.
Perfect. Tim?
Yes, I'm Tim Ebers. I'm currently the head of customer engineering at Era Software. I've been in and out of pre-sales my whole career, and there's a long one, and we won't bore you with it all. But I've been both on the customer side as well as on the pre-sales side, architecture side, for my career. So I bring a little bit different, unique stance from buying the software that I then try to sell to customers. So been doing this for a long time, and I live out in the Midwest in Columbus, Ohio. And yes, I do have a ranch, and I do have horses, in case of those that were wondering why I wear the hat. It's just part of what I do every day.
It's a great hat for Tuesday morning, Tim. And Deirdre, how about you?
Sure. So I'm Deirdre Summercamp. I'm Vice President of Solutions, Consulting, Operations, and Enablement for Upland's Sales and Marketing Business Unit. And I'm based out of Charleston, South Carolina. As far as my purview, I am on the pre-sales side now, and a majority of my career was on the post-sales side in consulting services and strategic consulting. So officially since 2019, I've been on the pre-sales side, but again, most of my career has been on the post-sales.
Great, thank you, everyone. I think that's really interesting, Deirdre. I think, you know, like many people probably in pre-sales on the call, like myself, I came over from post-sales as well. So that's a really kind of good to know there's lots more people that are still coming with that story. But I'd be interested, Deirdre, to kind of hear. So you sort of said, you know, you came out of post-sales, you've been in pre-sales for about 3 years. Can you kind of just give us a bit of a breakdown of your current org and kind of how that's organized? What do people do? How does pre-sales fit into that?
Sure thing. So Upland is one of those organizations where it's a matrix organization. And it's a little bit complex. So today I'm going to be talking about our enterprise sales and marketing business unit. I'll call it ESM for short. Upland has business units that are aligned to the needs of specific buyers. So in our ESM business unit, we sell to the heads of sales and the heads of marketing. And we have 5 of Upland's 30 plus SaaS products in our business units. And this particular group of 5 products is focused on things like account-based selling, guided selling, content strategy, those use cases that sales and marketing leaders have in their organization. But Upland does also have business units focused on like IT and project management, HR and legal. Each business unit within Upland has a general manager that reports to Upland's chief business officer. So in ESM, I lead the solution consulting function and I report to our general manager along with leaders from other departments. So in our organization, we're seen as very strategic. We're looked at as that tip of the spear, so to speak. And I'm part of our business unit's executive team, as well as part of the sales leadership team across all of Upland. And now the solution consulting team in ESM is comprised of solution consultants, a director of solution consulting, and a senior proposal manager. And so they see what's happening in the field, new trends that are emerging in B2B sales and marketing, and they come from a variety of background. Because we're focused on net revenue retention, our solution consulting team supports not only new business sales, but also existing customer sales, such as expansions and cross-sells and renewals. And so our makeup since about 2020 has been 40% new business, 40% existing customers, and 20% other requests. As far as like what our SCs do on a day-to-day basis, they're involved in discovery calls and presentations. They deliver personalized use case demos, recorded micro demos. They lead POCs, conduct pre-sales workshops. They facilitate integration discussions, provide feedback to our product team, assist with marketing webinars. They help with post-sales needs, like coming up with creative solutions. We also support a product-led growth campaign for one of our products, and we assist with sales enablement for our ESM team. So simply put, they partner with every function, pre and post sales, and touch pretty much everything.
Great, thank you. It's a really great answer. And I love how you ended that, kind of really putting that team at the core of that business. I think really kind of speaks to what we're talking about today. Elena, I know from your side, like Deirdre mentioned strategy there. I know that's kind of something for your team that's really key. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, I relate a lot to how Deirdre talked about her org. So again, my background is as a direct SC. I grew up in this organization and now I sit on the executive team. My title is EVP of strategy. And what we try to do is bring together all the things that we need to successfully go to market in my org. So I don't run the direct SCs who are embedded with our field sales, but I run groups of subject matter expert SCs who focus on specific new buyers who we're trying to unlock. So for us, it's contact center, digital, HR buyers. Like we have expert SCs and subject matter experts who do report up to me. But I also run product marketing, demo engineering, our thought leadership and customer community functions. So for us, it's really about kind of bringing together all of that subject matter expertise to target the specific buyers that we're trying to focus on in one place. It means we can kind of go end to end from who are we trying to be for this buyer? What are we trying to do for them? All the way to the customer community that engages them, the thought leadership that involves them, the demos that our field is going to take to market. And we've got all of that aligned within my organization.
Love it. That's great. And Tim, customer engineering. Tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah, customer engineering is an interesting title. As a customer for half of my career, the thing that I struggled with as a customer was always when I'd get traded off between groups, right? It seemed like every time I hit a milestone in a journey of buying a product, I'd get handed off to a different group of people that then I would be taken for a little bit further and then get handed off to somebody else. And then always having to rewind all of the discussions that I've had over the past, 3, 4, 5 months and have to explain it all again. And I always felt like I was starting over. And so what we tried to do with customer engineering is basically create a model where you don't leave the team. The team follows you along with your journey. So we'll not only have pre-sales, we can have post-sales, we can have support all rolled up into the same group of people that know your story, know where you're coming from, know what you're trying to do, understand your solutions. So when you ask a question about X, we all know what your configurations look like. We all know what your implementation looks like. We've been on phone calls, you know who you're talking to. And it really drives that really white glove support mechanism for our customers. And they really seem to like that, right? There's a lot of products that do similar things to we do. Logging is one thing that's been out there probably since the mainframe PDP 11 days, which should show you where I started my career. And logging has always been something that's been out there. And so for us, it's actually a value add for our customers to have a single place where all of your technology needs and discussions can be centralized for you as the customer.
Great. I love it. And I think what's really kind of striking me personally about this is that we're placing the customer, we're still keeping the customer kind of at the center of that conversation. And I know, it seems like everyone here, we've kind of moved away from what we might say a traditional pre-sale structure. And Deirdre, you kind of mentioned you've been on that journey and you obviously come through different parts of the organization. We talked about kind of customer value, but are you finding that you're also getting value for your internal stakeholders in kind of moving to this model?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great point. So because we're maniacally focused on the buyer experience and customer experience, we're really solving these unique business problems with technology and expertise. And we're seen as trusted partners and advisors internally as well as externally.
Great. That's really good. Thank you. So I think that's kind of really nice. And that's kind of, I guess, to move on to the thing that I think maybe that's kind of digging me a little bit here, that I'm wondering, like, we're talking about changing, and this is quite a a big shift for a lot of companies. So kind of as leaders, and Tim, let's start with you. What are the considerations that, and anyone on this call who's a leader, and we know we have lots of leaders here, what are those considerations that maybe they should have if they're looking to build out an organization similar to those that you're sharing with us today?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us as the first SE in the organization, the biggest thing we had to battle and have discussions around is, where do we put a customer engineering group? Where does it belong? And then how do we pay them? Do we pay them differently? Do we pay them just on comp? Do we align them to the customer? And then what KPIs are we talking? What metrics are we measuring them on with the customers? And then everything that we do needs to give the engineers the flexibility to do what they need for the customer. If we give them just a sales or a number goal, are we really driving the behaviors that we're looking for? So we spent a lot of time talking about that. And I don't know that we've ever landed on the right mix, because I'm not sure that it exists, right? There is no right or wrong here. It's where are you on your journey, and then changing those metrics as you move your journey.
Nice. And Elena, like, as someone, you're saying, you grew up in the organization. What was it? What did you learn kind of coming through that you found? What considerations would you have?
I think for us, it was an obvious thing to bring all of these things in line, because what was frustrating as an SC leader was to have customers inbound to us who had gotten a slightly different version of the messaging created by product marketing, put up on a website, or who are getting, I guess, just not a consistent story about what our product is, how it's different from the other things in the market as things handed off. And all of these different assets, because they were created by different parts of the organization, weren't telling exactly the same story. They were telling nuanced versions of slightly different stories. And that problem got even harder when we started talking to multiple buyer personas within our go-to-market, right? So we moved out of our core into talking to some other types of buyers, and we amplified that problem. So for us, I mean, yes, the considerations around comp model, like the functions that are under me all do very different things. Product marketers are not sales engineers, but if you can bring a product marketer a little close to a sales engineering mindset and bring a sales engineer a little bit closer to the product marketing mindset, what you get is a lot of consistency across the messaging. So what we try to do is be very careful about what every role is doing, who they're working with across the organization, because that's another big part of what my organization does, is try to work with product, work with marketing, right? We can't only control things within our function. Professional services is a big part of it. How do we tell our customers stories in a way that sets people up for success? So we have to be really thoughtful about understanding what each of the different roles in our organization does and how they should be comped differently, and have different relationships, while at the same time creating this kind of a central nucleus of, here is the group of people who talk to contact centers, and they're going to spend a lot of time together, each wearing their own hat, but making sure that they're all really aligned. And so, you have to sort of balance those two things. What are the goals of these individual functions? How do we make sure that they have really strong connective tissue, both within the functions within my team, and then also to product and marketing, who really kind of carry out a lot of what we're seeing.
Great, thank you. And Deirdre, I guess, we're talking about building out teams, and part of that is taking people that are in the business and putting them into maybe new roles. But what about when we're going out and hiring new people? How do you approach that?
So from a hiring standpoint, hiring non-traditional candidates that bring new ideas, creativity, and additional areas of expertise to the team, really hiring for where your team is going and being strategic, thinking about what your future needs are. What your future needs will be, not just where you are today.
Thank you.
I think if I could add on to that, I think, we've seen a lot of opportunity to move people from one role to another because of the structure that we have, right? So we've turned SCs into product marketers. We've had SCs move into product roles and product leadership roles, because you're working so closely with those other functions in the structure that we have, that you can start to really easily make those connections, see what that other role is about, and then move over. So it's given us a lot of flexibility to hire non-traditional talent and then grow it into all types of other roles across our business.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a really positive thing, seeing that. I think bringing in that raw talent can completely kind of turn everything upside down in a very good way. Tim, how did you kind of, I guess you kind of, I think it was interesting, you mentioned comp. That's a big part of people when they change roles, very important, but also kind of how people's roles changed. And what I've been interested in is, how did people who were how did they react when you said, right, we're completely changing how we're going to work, this is our new structure?
I think a lot of it depends on where you started from. Since we started from scratch, I think we were able to hire in a lot of that. But coming out of, even when you hire a pre-sales person, right, they're thinking, I'm going to do pre-sales and that's it. So when you go, well, you're actually in customer engineering and we do everything, and they look at you like everything with pre-sales. No, like everything, like support, like here's your pager duty. We're going to give you a pager. You're going to get called and you're going to have to wake up at night. I think that's really when what did I just sign up for really hit the fan. And so, you have to be upfront. So really, when we look at hiring, we look at the groups of people that we're putting together for our customers, and then the needs in those particular groups. It is my belief that we all have strengths and we all have weaknesses. And so we look at the strengths of the team, and then maybe where we have gaps in the team that we need to hire to. And we look for those particular groups of people that can fill those gaps. And then having people to be able to go in between the different roles or the different functions of that particular team is really nice. And if you are CSM and you all of a sudden want to come over to pre-sales and you don't know how to get there, putting you on a team like this, as the other two mentioned, is easy to get people the right technology needs or the right selling needs, or where your gaps are to really fill into moving into a pre-sales role. So it's a good foundation to be able to go across the whole, and it gives you a lot of variety.
Yeah, and I really like that. And I think it's definitely true that you you hire someone who's been in pre-sales, they have a perception of what that may be. And yeah, I guess my assumption would be you've changed the organization. It's now a combined org. Has that changed your hiring profile, the kind of people that you're going out and looking for?
Yeah, it makes hiring a whole lot harder. So for us, we're a very technology-based solution. And so we're dealing mostly with technologists and not business buyers. And so we are very much wide and deep all at the same time. Some people love that and some people don't. Some people want to be very specific in what they want to do, and some people want to do it all and want the variety. And so we are very careful about how we hire and what we have to hire for. Especially in being in a very technical role, because we could hire people in and them struggle with trying to get up to speed to be able to do all of those needs. And then as you get larger, then you have to think about, is hiring too hard? And what am I going to do to change the org to make hiring easier so that we can get the right number of people we need to support? So as you go along your journey, you definitely change. But yeah, the profile for the managers is definitely harder to go find.
It's interesting. I think on our side, it's made it a little bit easier. I mean, maybe because of the ability to recruit talent from other places. Professional services is a great example of a place where you can find really solution-oriented SCs, we call it SCs in Medallia, who know a lot of customer stories, have seen their customers kind of push the envelope and do really cool things, and then bring a ton of credibility to sales cycles because they can sit across a customer having implemented and built and supported dozens of programs with best practices and the things they saw work really well. So maybe it's different because we sell to the business, but I think for us, that orientation has, towards solutions, I guess, kind of end to end, wherever the customer is, has allowed us to find folks who, maybe they haven't sold before. Now, I was one of them, not at Medallia, but at a competitor, right? I was in professional services before I came here, but that ability to handle customer issues, shape a good solution, encourage a customer to ask a slightly different question to get to the right place, all of that stuff creates a really great sales engineer. And as it turns out, creates a lot of impact on product and marketing and all the other places we want them to impact, at least in our business.
Awesome. So I think and this is so, I mean, just for me, it's just so valuable. And I think there's a real a lot of stuff to kind of take away from this. And I think, recognition that we've got a lot of leads on this webinar today, and I'm sure there's some absolute gold in here. But I know we've got a lot of ICs, and there may be people who are kind of sat there thinking, am I going to go through that change? Am I going to kind of have this change? Or maybe they're going through that change themselves. And I think what will be interesting is, and Deirdre, I'll come to you first. What's something that you have found, maybe one thing that you can say, if speaking to the ICs on here today, that they can bring to the table to really help contribute to that combined organization and creating those meaningful cross-functional relationships?
Sure. I think that's a great question. I would say setting up a 30-minute meeting with your cross-functional team members to get to know them better, understand what's top of mind for them, what they care about, and how you can help one another.
And Tim, what about you?
Ask questions. I think as you move from place to place, I think too often we don't ask enough questions about what's going on, why it's going on, and we try to just power through it. I have found that asking questions, the ones that seem to be the dumbest, are actually the ones that people didn't even know were going on. And in your brain, it's like, well, why is it that I'm asking this question and nobody else can see it? And a lot of times it's perspective, right? You bring a different perspective, you're coming in differently. So don't be afraid to ask the questions.
Elena?
And that perspective is such an important one, right? I mean, I think that the advice I always give is like, embrace getting out of your lane, right? You are not, we know this, and we say this as sales engineers, like, you're not just there to do the demo, which is a terrible use of us, right? We see what customers want to do. We see it firsthand. We see and feel the questions they ask that we don't have a good product answer to. We see what the best customers do when it comes to implementing and building and servicing, really powerful programs using our technologies. Like, know your value in educating other parts of the business around those things. I always, try to encourage people on my team to do, we've got a new person joining the organization. be the way they get educated about what your customers do with the technology, because you're adding value. You're pretty unique in your ability to add that value because you're seeing so many customers, whether it's pre-sale or post-sale, and what they're doing. Lean into that impact, because building those relationships and building that credibility as the person who knows the product well or can teach people about it, those are the relationships that help you have an impact on product, have an impact on marketing, have an impact on how we service, and get things done later on when, maybe you've got a customer who needs something weird and you've got to get an architect to help you scope that thing. Did you teach that architect how we do things here? So I think pre-sales in particular has this very unique ability to build those relationships through educating. I always encourage new SEs to do that. The other thing I see the best SEs do is they think a lot about, and maybe this goes back to the point Tim made earlier about that handoff process, right? The best SEs in the process of scoping a program are thinking, what's going to set this up for success, right? How do I scope something that is not going to be over our skis, that's really going to work well for this customer? That's how do I shape by not just saying yes to whatever the customer asks, but really helping them with being the guardian of a well-designed program. So lean into that instinct. I think most pre-sales people have it wherever they come from, whether they came from servicing, whether they came from sales. We want to design really great stuff. Don't be afraid to advocate, even to a customer, about what will make them more successful. Sometimes those are the hardest, but the most important. And then don't let go of that customer once that, we don't just throw things kind of over to be implemented or built and lose track of them, right? Some of the best stories come from maintaining those relationships, understanding how things are going. So, just embrace getting out of your lane a little. People appreciate it, and it's a great way to add value.
I think that's a lesson we could all take. Embrace getting out of your lane, going. I love that setting up those short meetings, especially, what we've all been through the last kind of few years. I think digital, that really is something that I did try and do, is just having these, especially when you're going through M&A, just reach out to people, find out where they are, get to know them, and you build those relationships. And always ask questions, and it's because you say, I think if you're the person who's speaking up, asking that question, then that's going to build a lot of credibility for you, because everyone's going to be going, I didn't want to ask that because I thought I was going to look stupid, but he's just asked it, so I better go and speak to them because they clearly know what they're doing. So I think that's kind of, and maybe come to the next question, Tim. I think we've talked there about, I can come back to customer engineering, kind of making it a customer-centric process. How do you make decisions that are customer-centric?
For us, we push it as close to the customer as possible, down to products, features. We do a ton of product work in our group, probably more than we probably should, to help push enhancements and features and be advocates for our customers. But our expectation is that our customer engineers are helping our product management team, or our product in general, to develop to the way that our customers need. And then at that point, if there's ties that need to be broken, just like anybody else, right? What's the dollars? What's the cents? How long will it take? How many customers will it impact? But honestly, it's how do you push it as close to the customer as possible, because they're the ones that have the best perspective as to what's going on.
Right. And Deirdre, kind of leaning on from that then. So Tim's sort of saying, right, the customers have the best perspective. What have you seen? What value have you seen from customers in creating that org? What have your customers been telling you since you made that change?
So I would say, whether it's pre-sales, working with the solution consulting team, or post-sales, working with, implementation and then customer success, we're all helping our customers to achieve their goals, such as improving productivity and revenue team collaboration, or increasing deal sizes, improving win rates, right? Shorter sales cycles, things like that. So we're all aligned to help the customer achieve their goals.
And in doing that, that must create opportunity for the organization, right? Tell us a bit more about that, kind of the impact that you found it's had.
Sure. So I think the impact really is those better buying experiences and happier customers, because we're personalizing the interactions, we're having them pre-sales. And an example of that would be something like slowing down the sales cycle. And I know people cringe at that, but slowing down the sales cycle to do a better job at discovery so that we can deliver those personalized use case specific demos, which will in turn save the buyer's time. No one wants to sit through a 30-minute, 40-minute demo, right? They want to see just what they care about. So doing a deeper level of discovery so that we can get at the specific care abouts, then that really saves them time. I think also, the other thing would be greater revenue team collaboration across the buying and customer journeys, because we're all focused on delivering those measurable outcomes to our customers. And it's where everyone, sales, customer success, product marketing, we're all helping the customer achieve their specific goals, and everyone has different actions to complete.
Like, one of the things we've seen is that you've got to do this at a bunch of different levels within the organizations that we work with. So owning the kind of the customer community elements at Medallia, we have user groups, which are very oriented toward kind of the frontline users who are configuring and in our platform every day. They need a very different thing than the folks who are in our customer advisory boards, right? Executives who are talking about what are we trying to do with these products. And I think sometimes we have a tendency to be kind of one-to-one in the way that have one bit of communication for all of those different audiences, which if you get to the very like high level goal oriented stuff in a user population, it doesn't connect in the same way. So we try to be really thoughtful about what's the right level for this for this customer community, from very frontline, sort of we do it at the middle ground around user personas, and then all the way up to the executive level. I think being thoughtful about how do these customers want to interact with each other, and what do we add from a place of staying back but still bringing that group exactly the kind of the thoughts they need. We get a ton of product direction, feedback, things that we should be doing at every level of those interactions from our customer base.
Great, I love it. And Elaine, just to kind of stay with you, I guess this is the final question that I've got, and then we'll throw out some questions from the audience. Thank you for those of you that put them in already. If you have any more, please stick them in the Q&A. We'll have that in a minute. But we've heard a lot. I think there's so many kind of really exciting, real edge of the innovation stuff going on here. But is this an approach for every company, and why, if so, and maybe where may it not fit?
It's an interesting question. I mean, I think every company can take steps in this direction, right? Whether a unified organization that does, even within us, we've got slightly different functions within each of our more unified organizations. So I'm not sure there's a one size fits all approach that's going to work for every single organization that is on this call. But is there something that every single person on this call can do to move in this direction? Yes. If you're a pre-sales person who hasn't really engaged a lot with what gets built for your customers and the solutions organization and professional services, build those relationships, start to create. We did things like lunch and learns, where we would have our professional services teams teaching our solutions consulting teams about the leading edge customers, to give that exposure. If you don't know anybody in product marketing, please, pre-sales, go meet them. You will up level the messaging that ends up on a website and in webinars and how they think about things. So I don't know that every organization needs exactly like an org like we're talking about, but I deeply believe that everyone in pre-sales can move their organization in a step or two in that direction.
No, I think that's really important. Yeah, it's kind of there's not a one size fits all, but that's really kind of key. And Deirdre, I suppose again, I'm interested, just given your experience and how you sort of came to this role. What would you how do you answer that? Is this an approach that if someone was coming to you and you were still in that post sales role and they were positioned, is this something that you would find interesting?
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, from my perspective, one of the reasons why I moved to pre-sales is when I was on the post-sales side, I was being asked to join sales calls, right, as a pre-sales person to help close those big deals. And so it absolutely is. And I think, does it work for every organization? I think every organization is different. Some are very, technical versus business use case specific. So I think it's important to understand what works for your organization, but I think there are some commonalities that cross, any organization.
No, I think I'd agree. And Tim, are we going to see more customer engineering departments cropping up? Do you think we should?
I think especially for the technical products out there that are selling to IT, I think you will. And a lot of that is really getting to the customer success function that we'll talk about in a bit. Is customer success to me is an outcome, right? When your customers are successful, then you as a business are successful. And in order to do that, for us, it's all about driving that white glove treatment for our customers and building that trust, right? One of the hardest things that it takes time to do is build that trust and build that relationship. And it's not going to be in 1 or 2 or 3 calls. It's in a series of months. And that's, I think you will, just because people are going to start to expect that. I think we're going to shift very quickly to white glove treatment that we haven't seen before, just because of the competitive nature of what's going on in the industry.
Yeah, it's interesting. Have you been able to kind of quantify the impact of that white glove treatment at all?
So every one of our deals that we've won, I can contribute back to having them all together, sitting on the first call with a customer and talking about support, talking about implementation services, talking about pre-sales, and going, the team that you see on the phone is the team that you will have through your whole life cycle journey, from onboarding to offboarding, is sitting here with you. We don't change. And they all look at you funny and go, well, I don't understand. Like we don't call it different. Like, no, all support goes right to this group, unless all 4 of them or 5 or 6 of them are on vacation at the same time, which we don't ever allow happen. But that's really the point is having that central group that you can go to.
I think that is really key. And I think having that common voice, that, not I think we've mentioned a few times today, not just kind of going, right, I'm done with you, I want to hand you off to this person now that you've never met before, and you never get to speak to me again unless you want to come and spend some more money. I think that's really, really, really powerful. So we're going to kind of move on now to the Q&A section. Thanks for those of you that have been bringing questions in. A question from Elena, just for you. So it says, if I understood correctly from the intro, it sounds like your organization is a mixture of specialist teams with different skill sets and then kind of shared services. You mentioned demo engineering. How does a CSO, a chief solutions officer, how do they balance across those teams? And how do they kind of across regions, across specific customers, how that might work?
Yeah, it's a great question and a complicated question. It depends on the specific role. I mean, in my organization, there are some functions that really need to make those balances, the ones that are closer to sales, demo engineering, the pre-sales folks who live in my org, other parts that it doesn't touch. But specifically with respect to the pre-sales folks I have, I mean, a lot of the thinking is work yourself out of a job. I mean, I don't think that we'll ever get to that point, but my team is designed to think and speak to certain buyer personas and consistently allow our field pre-sales folks to do more and more and more of that job. So if we're doing it right, then the demand for us doesn't increase as the organization scales. We just focus on kind of the leading edge, making sure the materials are there, enablement, coming in a specific sales cycle where that level of expertise is really needed and important, and adding that. But then in the process of adding it, also enabling that field sales engineer to learn everything we know, and then we don't have to come back to that next sales cycle for that exact same reason. And so we think a lot about that. Some of it comes down also, of course, to, what metrics do we tie this team to? So for us, the pre-sales parts of our organization, of my organization, are specifically focused on growing and expanding that footprint within the, the persona that they're selling to. That means that they don't differentiate between an install base account and a new logo account, because selling, a new contact center program to either of those things makes the same difference in revenue, as well as how many stories we can tell, customer success, all of that. And so we try to eliminate as many of those artificial walls as we possibly can, and just focus people on what we're trying to do here is grow the number of people in this persona who are using our product set. And so every morning we wake up and think, what do we need to do that? Is it a change in our demo environment? Is it a new customer story? Is it, I should spend my time supporting this one really strategic cycle, because that'll teach that field SC and land that logo. So when you set a clear North Star like that and you remove the barriers that get in the way, otherwise, I find that creates the right kind of alignment.
Great, thank you. And question, Dej, if you, I mean, you talked about kind of the hiring and your hiring approach. Where are you finding these candidates that are coming from outside your company?
Yeah, so this is a really fun one for me because I'm always looking for what we need and where we're headed, right? So in two cases, we have customers that have actually approached us and said, if you ever have an opening on your team, we would love to join. So we have two former customers which are on our team as one is a solution consultant. And there's nothing more powerful when a solution consultant who is a former customer says, and this is how we used it at our company, right? So that's phenomenal. At a point in our business where we needed a very unique skill set to take different applications and look at the integration side of it. I liken it to creating a meal or a recipe. We actually hired a former executive chef who is on our team now. We call him Solution Chef, but he also had solution consulting experience for a couple of years, but I knew that was that exact right skill set, and we found him on LinkedIn. We also hired a PreSales Academy grad who had a wealth of knowledge in the sales and marketing function. We knew we could teach her everything we needed to about the products and the technical side, but we needed someone who could talk to a chief revenue officer, chief sales officer, chief marketing officer, and really understand the things that they care about.
I love that story, and I love the shout out to the PreSales Academy. Anyone who wants to hear a bit more about it, there's a link that's just been dropped in the chat. And I just want to follow up on that. You mentioned that you hired people off LinkedIn. Is there like something that for you as a hiring manager that really makes a LinkedIn profile stand out from others if you're looking at them?
Yeah, I would say they're transferable skill set, right? No, I don't care as much about what they've done in the past, but I want to know what they can do in the future, where they want to be, and what value they feel that they can bring to any organization. You know, the metrics that they have on LinkedIn in their profile really speak volumes as well.
I think it's hard to do from a LinkedIn profile, but in an interviewing process, at least for us, when I think about, and as one of the first pre-sales folks here at this company, we had three models, right? We had people who came from the space and were subject matter experts, kind of like the clients that Deirdre was just talking about. We had professional services folks who had built and really knew the technology well. And then we had professional sales engineers. And anytime we interviewed any one of them, we knew we were going to get one of those three competencies, but not the other two, right? Could we train them for technical expertise in this product? Maybe you give a challenge or you try to feel that out. Could we take a customer who's someone who's a subject matter expert in this space? Are they comfortable with technology? And, do they gravitate toward technical details? So we try really hard in the interview process to be very thoughtful about what is the skill we're hiring and what are the two skills that we're not going to get. And do we see the path toward this person taking those on?
From anywhere you can find them is my answer. Finding good, high quality candidates is tough, especially in a startup where you don't have a lot of luxury of training new hires. I wish I had, an organization of 300 people where I could bring in people that we can train. But when you're sitting with, 6, 7, 8, 9 deep, trying to find enough time in the day is hard for all of those resources, and finding those resources is just tough. So we go anywhere. We do a ton of word of mouth and people that have worked with people that that know us. A lot of word of mouth that way is where we tend to find a lot of our folks.
Yeah, I love it. There's no better way to get a job than have someone refer you. I think that's and I speak as someone who's been referred, and I speak as someone who has referred people. I think kind of just got time for a couple more questions, and Tim will kind of stay with you. I think it'd be interesting to know. I had a few kind of questions along a similar theme, and you mentioned it just there, which was around time and resource and how we manage our own resources and time. And I think having a combined model, you've mentioned already, you're bringing in your post-sales folks, your support folks into those early stage calls. How do you find, balancing their engagement, balancing this time, making sure that they're not feeling like, not to be unfair, I'm only ever supporting sales and sales are just putting stuff in my calendar without asking me?
Yeah, I think those are all really good questions. We negotiate really well with our sales organizations to find the right time for the right people. We do a lot of, we spend a lot of time understanding what the call is going to be about. We know most of what's going to happen on the calls. So we may have support there, we may not. Ultimately, it comes down to prioritizing what's important, right? Customer support is the most important thing that we do, making sure our customers are supported in whatever they have. Sales is, I think, second, which is an interesting, will be interesting to a lot of folks. But sales is our number two. If there is something, if there is a sub one, if people are down, we will all flock to that problem no matter what is going on. And we will cancel meetings if we need to for prospects if we have to. And quite frankly, the people that we're selling to understand that. And they actually want to hear that. It's actually a great selling point for our customers of, hey, we're having an issue with the customer. The folks that are supposed to be on your call are actually working with that customer on an issue. We hope that you understand, because quite frankly, you're going to be in the same situation someday and you'll want the same thing.
I love it. That's probably all the time we have for questions. Elena, Deirdre, I don't know, just kind of any kind of closing comments from either of you just on that last question, just before we wrap up.
No, I love what Tim said about, this is, customers are our number one priority. You would also want that type of a treatment. I'm gonna steal that. I think that's exactly the right mindset to have.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. I think, from a prospect standpoint, right, in the pre-sales, you're going to be looking at deal size, right, in terms of how big is that deal, and prioritizing those fewer, bigger deals over some of the more transactional ones.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you, and thank you again. I think this has been so valuable to me personally, and I really hope everyone watching has enjoyed it. Thank you, everyone, for all your questions. I hope we've managed to get to them. Sorry we haven't managed to get to every single one, but it's always great to have that many questions. So just to wrap up then, I just want to say a quick thank you to our sponsors who make this possible. So thank you to Reprise, who's one of our sponsors for today, and also then a thank you to Avnio. Avnio is the only solution which is built on the Salesforce platform, making it easier to manage your RFP, RFI processes in a platform you're probably already using. The AI automation really makes it easier for you to complete these requests quickly. In fact, they actually conducted some polling, and they saw that half of their respondents were spending 6+ hours a week on RFX requests, which, if you're only good at maths, tells you that's over 300 hours a year, and a process which no one really enjoys completing. Of course, the RFP still needs to be customized for each opportunity, but Avnio helps you to automate the common questions. That not only reduces the time that you spend on the mundane parts of the sale, but also makes sure that you're providing consistent answers across all your deals, and really now means that you can spend more time talking to your customers instead of filling out tedious RFPs. So be sure to visit avnio.com/resources to download their ebook, How to Win More RFPs with Your Salesforce CRM. And I thank you again to our sponsors. So we just have another poll for you today, which is, how did we do today? And will we see you next week on our next webinar? A few more seconds left in that poll. Okay, great. That's great. Thank you so much. It's really clearly been a really valuable session. lots of people getting a lot of value out of that. So again, a massive thank you to our panelists for sharing everything today. I think this is a conversation that I know could go on for a lot longer than 40 or 50 minutes. So just then to say, next week we have our next webinar, which is going to be on sales and pre-sales relationships. So really focusing on building that effective partnership. We talked a lot about partnerships today. It's really been a really interesting for me to kind of pick up on that. So join us next week to hear from some more fantastic panelists on how you can do that and how to really be effective in building those relationships. We are going on tour. So the Pre-Sales Collective is going back on the road on our Back to PSC School tour. We're going to be all around the world. I'm hopefully going to be at the London event. We're in the Bay Area currently, going to be in New York next week, and then down in Austin in the first week of December. We also, on the 27th of October, we have our next Leadership Next conference, and it's the first pre-sales conference which is really geared towards building that next generation of great pre-sales leaders. And there's going to be some great speakers here, people who are new managers or who've been in management for a while, who are going to be talking about their journeys and sharing their experiences. And all these links are now being posted in the chat, so please do go there and do sign up. And of course, you can see all this information at presalescollective.com. We also have our next Pre-Sales Collective Executive Summit, which is the 1st and 2nd of November. And you can see the times there up on the slide. So please, again, if you're a pre-sales leader, pre-sales manager, and you'd like to join that, please do join us there. It'll be fantastic to see you all. So all that leaves me to do is to say thank you again to our panelists for your time. It's been a really fantastic conversation, and thank you to all of those of you who've attended. Thank you all for your conversation and for your questions. It's been fantastic, and we look forward to seeing you at the next PSC event.